Welcome to Life L'Chaim. On today's show, host Lee Lazerson talks with Rachel Streitfeld, Southern Regional Director of JStreet. We'll find out all about the organization right after these messages.
With us in studio today is Rachel Streitfeld. Rachel, you are the Southern Regional Director for JStreet.
I am.
Welcome to Life L'Chaim.
Thank you so much.
Rachel, I want to talk about, first of all, tell us about JStreet, what your mission is and what you do for JStreet.
I'm happy to. Thank you. JStreet is the political home for pro-Israel, pro-peace Americans. We're a national pro-Israel advocacy organization rooted in Jewish values, advocating on behalf of a two-state solution for Israel's future as a secure, Jewish, democratic homeland.
And I know that's very prominently displayed in all that you do, the two-state solution. And so I want to talk about why you're so, that JStreet so owns that as a point of emphasis on what they do.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. We're deeply concerned about Israel's future as a secure and Jewish democratic homeland, and we want to make sure that Israel has internationally recognized borders, sovereignty over its capital of Jerusalem, and a future that is secure for future generations of Israelis, American Jews who want to make Aliyah, and diaspora Jews all over the world. And the only way to secure Israel's democratic and Jewish future at the same time as by partitioning the territory between the Mediterranean and the Jordan so that we retain a Jewish majority in that territory so that we can also maintain our democratic values.
But isn't over time we have been in a place that where the discussions that have happened in years gone by, Oslo prior to that, where the Palestinians don't really want that two states. And so how do we accomplish that when it seemingly has always been that partner that says, to get to that two-state solution, we have to go back to the 67 borders, you have to give up part of Jerusalem when it may not be in Israel's best interest to do that?
Well, the Palestinians do want a two-state solution, and it is in Israel's best interest to do that. So JStreet is looking at this as a win-win. Over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, polling consistently shows majority support among both communities for a two-state solution. The Palestinians have national aspirations. The Jewish community, the Jewish people, have national aspirations. For us as a Jewish people, we only have the one Jewish state of Israel. And it's up to us, and I see this as an obligation for my generation specifically, to secure Israel's character and future as a uniquely Jewish state, one with a majority Jewish population, as I said before, and one that also has a very true, thriving democracy. And so when you say the Palestinians don't really want peace, I think they do. Again, in polling, it shows that they do. They've endorsed a two-state solution. The Palestinian leadership and Fatah, Prime Minister Fayyad and President Abbas are working toward a two-state solution actively. They're negotiating with Israelis. There are conversations going on. And in the last 30 years, we've made tremendous progress toward those goals. As you know, the PLO recognized Israel in 1988. They've since recognized Israel publicly, and they've had conversations. And Israel also recognizes, as Prime Minister has stated recently, that having two states is in Israel's own interest to avoid the scenario of a binational state, which, as you know, would significantly diminish Israel's Jewish character.
Mm-hmm. But there are some huge roadblocks, obviously, in terms of whether East Jerusalem remains part of Israel or remains part of this Palestinian state, and obviously the upwards of 400,000 Jews that reside in Judea Samaria on the West Bank, and what can be done with them. Is it fair, feasible, morally correct to move those people out?
Well, the two-state solution is going to involve lots of compromises and great risks on both sides. And that's really important as Jewish Americans in the diaspora, the community, to recognize that Israel is going to have to take great risks for peace. And JStreet is very open and straightforward about supporting Israel's right to self-defense, beyond its right to exist, of course, but its right to protect its citizens. That's Israel's important obligation. The two-state solution will involve compromise. The proposal that was articulated by President Obama in May of 2011, that was a continuation of U.S. policy across Republican and Democratic institutions, or governments rather, the policy of starting negotiations on the basis of the 1967 lines with mutually agreed upon land swaps. So these major Jewish communities in the suburbs of Jerusalem, Ma'ale Adumim and Gush Etzion, these major communities will be included in Israel at the end of the day with some land swaps. Territories around Gaza have been talked about to make sure that the Palestinians have not only their own state, but a state that can be viable, where there can be economic growth, where we can use the tools of globalization, capitalism, the economy to empower and moderate the Palestinian population and create a trade partner with Israel and have more cooperation and, absolutely, most importantly, security.
And the security aspect of it, though, is maybe not the fear of a Palestinian state as it is those enemies of Israel, Hamas and Hezbollah, who would seemingly set up home, as they've done, in the West Bank and obviously the Golan Heights, and attack Israel from a much closer area than they previously have now.
Well, it's a really great concern, and I know all Israelis are concerned about it, as are American Jews. And there are 4 case studies that we can actually point to and study about whether or not violence can and does erupt after withdrawal from territory. So Israel withdrew from southern Lebanon without a peace treaty. Israel withdrew from Gaza unilaterally. In both of those instances, Hezbollah and Hamas were there to fill the void, and as we know, have rained terror on Israeli civilians. But in the 2 cases where there has been a partner, where there's been a signed agreement, a Palestinian, or rather Egyptian and Jordanian leaders who have signed on the dotted line that they're taking responsibility and accountability for security, those 2 peace agreements have been very, very solid, very powerful, and they are the pillars of Israel's relationships with the Arab world, its limited relationships with the Arab world. So when you look at these 4 case studies, the lesson I draw is that with an agreement, with a coordinated withdrawal, and with a partner that is accepting responsibility for the territory that they're inheriting, that's a better situation for Israel. Clearly, peace is better than no peace. Certainly with Egypt and Jordan, it's a cold peace, but we have security.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the recent Arab Peace Initiative and some of the criticisms that JStreet faces as well.
Thank you.
Okay?
Great, yeah.
We'll be right back. We're back with Rachel Streitfeld, Southern Regional Director for JStreet. Again, Rachel, thank you for joining us. Before the break, we were talking about the peace process as a whole, and recently there's renewed efforts by Senator Kerry with the Arab Peace Initiative that began upwards of
11 years ago,
2002,
right?
Yeah. 2002, with some changes. So describe JStreet's support of that Arab Peace Initiative.
Absolutely, I'm happy to, and I'm really glad you brought it up because it's very exciting to see Senator Kerry so actively engaged in getting the parties back to a meaningful negotiation. It is absolutely urgent for us to see a 2-state solution for Israel's future as a secure and democratic Jewish homeland. And I am very encouraged by the multi-pronged approach that Secretary Kerry seems to be taking on. And reviving the Arab League Initiative, the Arab Peace Initiative that was proposed in 2002 is a very positive step. JStreet has always supported a regional comprehensive agreement because Israelis need it. Israelis want to have normalized relations with the Arab world. They want to be able to travel. They want to be able to trade and engage in commerce. They don't want to experience things like every September at the United Nations General Assembly. So the Arab Peace Initiative is a very interesting offer. It's been revived recently, as you said, and it's not perfect. There are some issues around the demand for Palestinian right of return, as you know, that would need to be changed and agreed upon. But it is a fascinating offer. And it's something that the Israelis are interested in. There are, as you know, very, very different opinions in Israel about lots of things, certainly about the Arab Peace Initiative. But it's an important signal and step forward that Israelis can look at and work with. And it's important to see the bigger goal, the bigger horizon. When Israelis are presented with the portions of a peace deal, how do you feel about dividing Jerusalem? How do you feel about, the 67 border? One at a time, it's very negative. But when you look at the whole package, well, how do you feel about dividing the Arab part of East Jerusalem in exchange for normalized relations and a bigger package deal so that both sides see what they're getting in exchange for what they're giving up? All of a sudden, the idea of a two-state solution and a peace agreement becomes extremely more palatable for both communities. So it's a very, very interesting offer, the Peace Initiative, and something to be looked at.
Now, the critics of it certainly talk about the West Bank in terms of the 400,000 Jews that are currently there, and that have, the settlements that have grown up over time, and how you take care of that. And the critics also talk about how this is just a masterful public relations campaign by the Arab League to take the lead and to keep Israel on the negative in terms of world opinion. And then they go further to say that JStreet is helping this initiative along, and that they're playing into the hands of the Arab League in terms of criticizing Israel.
Well, JStreet is an organization that understands that Israel faces a very, very real threat of having to either sacrifice its democracy or its Jewish character, because there are millions of Palestinians who do live in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip, and within Israel. And if the Palestinians at some point, which could be in 10 years, in 20 years, the demographers say different things, but if the Arab population at some point outnumbers the Jewish population between the Mediterranean and the Jordan, and that population of human beings doesn't have the right to vote anywhere in national elections, that's a difficult issue for Israel internally with the American Jewish population and then the international community. So to get to a two-state solution is to avoid that difficult choice between democracy and the character of Israel as being uniquely Jewish. As someone who has traveled extensively in the Arab world, I've visited Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon. I'm not naive to the dangers of having unstable neighbors and the dangers of rampant lawlessness and chaos, which is what life is like in many of those places. And so I want Israel to retain its rule of law, its character as a thriving democracy. And to do that, we have to make sure that the Palestinians are separated. We need a divorce, is a really good analogy. When you have two people in a room who have been married and they have to divide up the kids and the house, that you don't just say, let's get them in the room and just leave them alone. There's an active negotiator, a judge, attorneys, people involved to help break these two people apart, and that's what needs to take place between the Israelis and Palestinians.
The peace initiative with respect to Secretary of State Kerry came on the heels of his comments that he had made when he had gone to Turkey, and in Turkey he compared the Boston bombing of the marathon bombing of April with the Maïv Marmara, the attack of the ship that was breaking through Israel's blockade.
Flotilla,
the flotilla.
Yes.
So, and he compared that, which in its sense compares Israel with terrorists. And so, he's received some criticism from that, but he didn't receive that criticism from JStreet.
Well, I have to be honestly, I wasn't aware that Secretary Kerry made those remarks, and I certainly would not have advised him to do so. So I can't really comment. JStreet makes statements on a regular basis condemning violence against Israelis and speaking out on behalf of Israel's right to defend itself. And certainly in the case of the Mavi Marmara, JStreet's statements did encourage or did state that we should be supporting Israel's right to defend itself.
Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Iran and JStreet's position on Iran.
Absolutely.
And we'll go from there.
Great, thanks.
We'll be right back. We're back with Rachel Streitfeld, Southern Regional Director for JStreet. Rachel, let's switch a little bit to talk about Iran and how Iran figures in all this, because as we know, Iran is not part of the Arab League. So to talk about the Middle East without including them is a big hole and a big gap. So address JStreet's position with respect to Iran.
JStreet's really concerned about the threat from Iran. We take the comments from Ahmadinejad seriously, we take their nuclear ambitions seriously, and we're very, very concerned. We're supportive of President Obama's dual-pronged approach of sanctions and diplomacy. We, as a Congress, have passed the toughest, most biting sanctions on Iran that country has certainly ever seen. And we can tell that the population is starting to feel the effects of those sanctions. So JStreet is supportive, again, of the administration's approach, as well as the administration's statement that it won't take any options off the table.
But it's very easy to say the population is feeling the effect, but the government, maybe not so much. And so from that standpoint, at what point does peace through strength become conflict to maintain the peace? When it comes to Iran, how do we get to the point of, okay, the nuclear discussion has gone on for years now, and we're getting close to, are we at that red line? Are we not at that red line? Are we approaching the red line? And so would JStreet support a bombing of Iran by Israel?
It's hard to say. JStreet would support Israel's right to defend itself, period, end of sentence. But again, we're supporting the president's dual-pronged approach, and we're very fortunate that the strength of the U.S.-Israel relationship is such that our intelligence agencies are communicating at the highest levels in the history of the U.S.-Israel relationship. So what the Israelis know, we know, and there's constant communication. And so I feel secure that if the decision is made by Israel or the United States to engage in some sort of military attack, that will be the best decision when it is taken. However, I will say that there has been much criticism of the dual-pronged approach taken on by this administration. And the other ideas that have been raised, such as a military strike, have also been criticized. The idea that we can quick and easy go in and take out their nuclear reactors is misinformed. Their nuclear program is underground, it's buried in rock, and we actually aren't sure if we have the capacity or if Israel has the capacity to be able to accomplish a mission without generating a humongous eruption of conflict in the Middle East. And so JStreet's support for the administration's approach comes from a deep concern that any attack on Iran could result in a war in the Middle East. As you know, Hezbollah is armed to the teeth. We just saw Israel attack weapon stockpiles in Syria. There's no shortage of weapons here, and we want to make sure that we don't light the match to set the whole region aflame.
But history will also show that sometimes war achieves peace for the long term. And if you have a nation, as we both know, that is committed to wiping Israel off the map, in word and deed, then war can achieve long-term peace for Israel.
You know, I think diplomacy has a better track record of achieving long-term peace than does war. I really worry that any attack on Iranian nuclear facilities would delay production of a nuclear bomb, if that's really what their intentions are, would delay production of a nuclear bomb by maybe 3-5 years, but it doesn't eradicate their hunger for nuclear capacity. It doesn't make their ambitions disappear. And that's why we're supportive of diplomacy, so that we can get to a place with the Iranian leadership where we can somehow disassemble the national narrative around their nuclear program that they've built. The Iranians, the great Persian Empire of history, are a very proud people. It's a humongous country with lots of people. They vote in elections, they're engaged in a civic conversation, and they do want this nuclear capacity. We have to find a way to convince this proud people to come down.
When it comes to JStreet, in terms of some of the criticisms, and I know we've talked about this on the phone, where JStreet in circles is to the left. We talk about the left in terms of organizations. And there's other organizations that support Jewish causes that are to the right. And you don't like that label.
I think we're pretty mainstream. I think we're pretty centrist. And the fact that every time we release a statement, we hear comments from our left and our right, it's a very strong indicator of where we lie in the American Jewish community. And there's lots of polling to back that up. JStreet takes on a national poll of American Jewish opinion every year and a half or so. And consistently, we see the numbers 78, 80%. The American Jewish community supports not only the two-state solution, but they support active American engagement to get to a two-state solution. They want to see the United States leading in the region, working tirelessly to bring the parties together, because the overwhelming majority of the Jewish community, as you know, really wants Israel to see peace. And that's a great set of numbers for us to go on. So left, right, we've got a lot of work to do, and we've grown exponentially in the last 5 years. And that growth, when I started with the organization, there were 8 of us. And now there are over 50 of us in 7 offices around the world. It's been unbelievable. And that growth really speaks to the support we have in the Jewish community.
Very good. Rachel Streitfeld, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely.
We're through. The conversation went very quickly, so we appreciate your time here on To Life L'Chaim.
Thank you so much, Lee. It was great.
Thank you. That's it for this edition. For more information on our show, please visit us on the web at tolifel'chaim.com. I'm Lee Lazerson. Thank you very much for joining us. And To Life L'Chaim.